Hi, everybody. And Sarah, thank you for the lovely introduction. This is my first time at LeadDev, and I'm super happy to be here. It's time now to talk about fast, informed, and impactful decision-making. I hope you're all excited as well. A bit more than a year ago, I learned about a big tech company with many engineering teams. One of these teams, they had to build a new service, a completely new service, and about, I would say, 3 or 4 months in, the lead architect came across their work and found out that the technology they are using for the service was kind of the wrong technology. It was not what they agreed on. So they had a list of things they could use, a list of technologies they could use for the service, because, and you all know this, software is not only built, but we also need to maintain it and support it. What was the outcome? A very frustrated team, because they had to rebuild the whole thing, many angry people, and, as you can imagine, many meetings. So when we talk about inefficient decisions today, for me, this means slow decisions, but it also means taking the same decisions over and over again. Often because the outcome hasn't been communicated super well, and that's why you need to go back and do it again. My name is Katrin. I spent the last 10+ years in companies like Elastic and Dynatrace as a PM, product manager, and UX manager. And as Sarah introduced me, recently I founded my own company called Strayon. Let's face it, all of you here in this room, you can make or break a project with your daily decisions. And I bet that this is also what makes your job very exciting, I would say. I wanted to find out how others in this industry, in this tech industry, making these big tech decisions. And I want to share these learnings with all of you today. My research focused on tech companies with 150+ engineers. I talked to many distributed teams. There were mainly teams building software products, a lot of B2B SaaS, some banking, and so on. And this talk here today shares actionable ways that you can bring to your team tomorrow, or maybe the day after tomorrow, and can incorporate and can try out to get to fast, informed, and impactful decisions. Full disclaimer, this is not scientific research. I have done interviews as part of my UX work and product management work for many years. I know how to not ask very leading questions, and I do my absolute best to not be super biased before I go into an interview. But take it with a grain of salt. This is not scientific research. I call it PM research. All of the interviewed people answered they are using an RFC-like process. RFC stands for request for comments. And in my own words, I would structure this process as follows. There is usually a research phase and a documentation phase, so where people already know what they are going to build, but the question is how are they approaching the problem and how are they building this? So they research multiple solution options and document them. Then they gather feedback from subject matter experts within their organization, and there should be a decision in the end, how to build it. Most of the teams only use this process for major updates and major changes, because it's an additional step in the process, obviously. When I say software specs or requests for comments or ADRs, architectural decision records or DACI records, they all have a slightly different name and process behind them, but I will use them interchangeably for this talk because they all have one single purpose. That's nailing down how you're going to build something. that's nailing down this plan. Because writing things down helps. That's why I have a grocery list when I go shopping. I'm not saying that I never buy other things as well, but at least I have a plan. I see many benefits in this RFC process. The most important ones, I think, are it's about building confidence in your decision. So as you gather input from the whole organization, you can anticipate potential issues very early, before you even start building something. You can avoid redundant conversations because you went through the whole process, you've documented, you have sent it out, everybody knows the outcome, you can always go back and look at it again. And there should be happening a lot of cross-functional and cross-team collaboration in that. So because this process encourages people to give their input and feedback, you can involve product, design, the security team, the legal team, whoever it needs for your specific project. In one of the first interviews, a very friendly interview with a very senior engineering manager, this popped up. They had troubles with the RFC process because it took too long. They had no clear process around it, and the roles of the participants were also lacking in clarity. And you know what? When I talked to this person, I first thought, yeah, that's probably because they are scaling up the team right now, and it just needs a bit of time, and it will probably only affect their organization. But I was proven wrong, of course. This popped up over and over again in many of my interviews. Which brings me to the drawbacks. Sometimes in the RFC-like process, there's unclear ownership and roles. There is, as I said, this additional step before you even go and build something. There can be endless reviews and repeated debates, and you know what? All of this brings us to the point where a team just goes, prototypes something, and maybe ships it to production. And I see it as well. There's a lot of additional work. So I'm here today to share 5 steps to fast, informed, and impactful decisions. In the more than 75 by today, interviews that I did with software engineers, engineering managers, tech leads, directors of engineering, I learned a ton. I took all this information and I summarized it into 5 simple steps that I'm going to show you today.
I hope you're enjoying this video, but did you know Lead Dev has a lot more to offer?
When I think about Lead Dev, I think about bricks and hearts. Bricks are those foundational things that you need to know, and Lead Dev provides that through webinars, through videos, through cutting-edge research, but hearts are the things that you need to glue yourself to the people at work, and Lead Dev does that through conferences and meetups.
Make sure you check out leaddev.com.
Let's start with the first one, the template. So almost every of the participants in the interview said they are using a template within the organization for this process. This is mine. It took many iterations to get to this, by the way. But what I wanted to show you here is I always start with the motivation, which is more the PM side, I would say, the why are we doing this? How is this affecting the users? Why now? Then I have a section for goals and non-goals, and this is super important because this sets the scope, this sets the stage for whatever comes next, and it helps you guardrail the feedback and the input that is coming in from your team. Then the next part is usually the design proposal. It can also be multiple options, and this is where all the discussions are happening. This is where all the feedback comes in and where you discuss about, is this the right solution for the project or the problem at hand? Then I have a section for risks. Why there's a full list of risks is because when I get excited about the project, it's very hard for me to think about what could go wrong. So my tool, my personal tool, is to just list everything there, and then I need to think about dependencies, security, how to monitor this, and so on. And this really helps me to just go through it, check it off, delete it, or add more information if it is applicable for this project. The last one is open questions. So anytime somebody slacks me a question or asks me on Zoom, I try to add it there so others can read it as well, and there's a full transparency. If you'd like to use this template, you can download it using the QR code, which leads to this GitHub repository that is public for everyone. I also listed other templates there. In case you're curious and want to take this back to your team, feel free to use it. In the end, before I give it to others to collaborate with me on this, I put all of my content into an AI tool of my choice, and I say something like, review the following content of this RFC according to On Writing Well by William Zinser. This helps me to be concise and to avoid redundant information, so it's easy for others to read and easy to grasp. The prompt, again, is on the GitHub repository. Also, go and read the book. It's amazing. It helped me a bunch. It talks a lot about how to choose the right adjectives and adverbs and how to be concise in your talking and in your writing. Let's get to the next one, about clear roles and, about now that we know how to structure the document, how do we get the content into it? A couple of months back, we thought maybe we can automate this. So because what we learned in the interviews and what happened to us as a team as well quite a bit is we discussed something on Slack and then it was lost. And I love Slack, but the search is not the best. And so all our thoughts and discussions were kind of lost. So we tried to solve this with an integration. We integrate into Slack. We take the content of this Slack thread of our discussion, and with the integration, we can summarize it, put it in our template, in our RFC template in this case, and we get the first draft of the document ready. This is in Strayon. If you're not using Strayon yet, we should talk. And you can also use this prompt. It didn't fit on the slide, but again, you can find it on my GitHub repository. You can try it out with whatever tooling you are using to copy-paste your thread into this with your template, and you should get the first draft ready. By the way, this is not what we use in production, obviously. This is one of the first drafts that I'm sharing here. Please make sure you also think about what you're putting in there, maybe delete the names, think about your company's IP and what you're putting out there. Then let's talk about who should be involved. And for that, I learned to use the DACI model. I came across this model, I think, when I worked at Elastic for the first time, and we're also using it at Strayon now, and it popped up in the interviews over and over again. I'm pretty sure there are many other models out there as well that you could use. This is just what I'm very familiar with. There's usually one clear driver. So this is the person who is running the project, who is pushing the document forward and getting things done. There are usually multiple approvers. These could be your manager, a tech lead, and so on. Then there are many contributors. These are very crucial because these are the people giving you input, giving feedback. And as managers here, please make sure your reports have access to subject matter experts to gather their input. I try my best to get subject matter experts for my project at hand, and I approach them directly and say something like, hey Rachel, I know you are the expert on migrations from X to Y, and I'm working on this project right now. Could you please give me input on that? What that does is it gives Rachel the context of what I'm expecting from her. What is it that I need feedback on specifically from her? And then last, the informed folks, depending on your organization, those would be VP level, C level, your manager's manager, for example. And as I said, this is pretty common in the tech industry. The fourth step is about scope. Be aware of people wanting to, not wanting, but comments derailing your conversations. I do two things to avoid this. One is going back to the template. We had the goals and non-goals sections. This already sets the stage for what you're expecting, what you want to do, and how you want to approach this, and helps your team staying on track with their conversation. The second thing I do is I have an out-of-scope message, which means I have a message ready that is friendly, but tells somebody, hey, this is out of scope of this conversation for this project. And I say something like, thank you for your suggestion. While it is a great point, this is out of scope for this software spec. And then the fifth and final one is about automatic updates. About 50% of the participants in the interviews told me they are using due dates for their documents, for their RFC process. I personally use due dates as well. Usually, I'm even leaving a bit of space, a couple of days. So I would set a due date when I need all the feedback in, and then I have still a couple of days for the final approvals and moving the document forward and starting to build something. And I use a ton of automation. I schedule messages, emails, Slack reminders in all the channels so I can notify folks, gather the input, gather the feedback from them, and I also communicate the outcomes there. Let's summarize what we learned. 5 simple things. Get your template ready. Feel free to use mine. I will show you the QR code in a second. And change it for your specific needs, of course. Try automating the creation of a document with the prompt I shared with you, and a couple of iterations, you should get there. And then define clear roles in your process, so people know what you expect from them, and you know what you can ask them for. Get your out-of-scope message ready. Also feel free to use mine. And automate all the updates and reminders and schedule your messages. If you haven't guessed yet, when I told you that I did 75 plus interviews for this, I love talking to people. I would love to hear from all of you during the office hours how you approach this, what your learnings are, and learn even more for the next iteration of this. Thank you so much for your time today. As I said, feel free to download all these resources or approach me and I can email them to you. Thank you.